So welcome everyone to the 2023 meeting of the owners of the Belfast Community Co-op. I am Susan Cutting, board president, and we have here Ernie Cooper, vice president, John Kruger, treasurer, Valerie Tate, secretary, and online we have three more directors, Charlie Padavina, Marion Grayheck, and Colin Thompson are on the Zoom. We have Doug Johnson, our general manager. And Heather Q is going to be the point person for Zoom today. So, and Emily Berry is our scribe out here somewhere at the front table. So, oh, there she is. She's just waved. So, and I'd like to ask everyone here to also introduce yourselves to folks at your table. If you could share your name and where you live. And for people on Zoom, could you type that into the chat? It is our tradition to read our global ends at the beginning of each meeting. And so Andrew Watkins, former board member, is going to be reading our global ends. If you could pull it up on the screen, Heather.
How's this? Okay. And I have to read it because it's been 4 years. I don't remember what it said. And Heather is going to pull it up. I have a rough idea of what it says, but I'm going to wait. What? So there it is. We exist, all of us in this room, and all the owners in our beautiful store to have a thriving, just and sustainable local food system, a source of healthy, nutritious, affordable food and water, an efficiently managed, democratically governed, and inclusive cooperative enterprise. Next, a greater understanding of health, food systems and cooperatives, and economic and environmental sustainability. Everybody with me so far? All right. An invested, engaged, and empowered staff that thrive in a safe, respectful, inclusive, and equitable workplace.
Thank you. Oh, great. So Kara Harshman, right? Is Kara, sorry, is going to read the 7 cooperative values.
Thank you. The 7 cooperative principles. 1, open and voluntary membership. 2, democratic member control. 3, members' economic participation. 4, autonomy and independence. 5, education, training, and information. 6, cooperation among cooperatives. 7, concern for community. And these are the 7 cooperative principles that govern all cooperatives, not just this cooperative. So globally, all cooperatives we're part of.
And I'm going to do the less interesting part of reading the working agreements. So asking everyone to silence your cell phones, remember. Listen without interrupting. Consider differences of opinion openly and respectfully. Raise your hand when you want to speak. Be concise and avoid repeating what has been said. Treat others as we would like to be treated ourselves. Avoid crosstalk. Everyone can participate or pass. Keep attentive, be fully present, and enjoy. Are there any additions or changes to the working agreements for today? Anybody want to add anything here? It's fine if you do. Okay, barring none, then I guess we'll go with this for today. And next, we're going to review the agenda. So we're going to take care of the report part first. And so we'll hear from me, the capital campaign report, treasurer's report, from general manager report, and then we're going to hear about election and candidates, and we'll have the Q&A after that. So just asking everyone to hold your questions or take a note of your questions until then. I think we're really going to have time. We've got some really concise reports here, so we're going to have time for everybody's questions and comments. And I guess we'll just jump in. Oh, and for folks on Zoom, Heather Q is called, what is it, presenter, presenter. And so when you have questions and comments, you can direct message her through the chat. So that's how to pass on those questions through Heather, and we'll make sure your questions are answered. All right, so jumping into the president's report. Oh gosh, thank you, Valerie. Yep. Charlie Patavina is one of our directors online, and he's going to share a few words about one of our community members and former board member passed away this year.
Thanks. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So Buck Sawyer was described as a thoroughly good man and an inspiringly bright soul, and he unassumingly contributed to the community in so many ways. He was an expert on real estate and construction, and his work with the co-op was just a small part of his lifelong dedication and service to others. He served admirably as a director until he resigned last summer over concerns about the direction the co-op was taking. And we were all heartbroken when we heard he passed away just before the new year.
Thank you, Charlie. Maybe Buck, we miss you. And now I guess we've got to move on to the reports section. So I've been thinking recently about the identity of the co-op. Who are we really? We are 4,850 member owners who have literally bought into the co-op's global ends and cooperative principles. We are the most awesome group of 74 workers who do so much to fill our shelves and keep the store running and make us feel welcome when we shop. Yeah. We are 220 local farmers and other producers whose offerings have resulted in $3.6 million of sales this year, local products. We are the community organizations whom we supported with 61,173 common sense donations in 2022. We are amazing. And we are a group of people who care deeply about our health, our environment, our workers, and our community. And we are a representative democracy. So around 47 years ago, since then, we've been electing our boards of directors as our representatives to make educated decisions about how best to steward this complex enterprise. This year, I've seen our board of directors yet again represent well the values that we as a community share. Our job as a board is to act on behalf of the member owners to ensure the well-being of our co-op. We monitor the overall health of the organization through monthly reports and measurable outcomes from our general manager, Doug Johnson, and we gather input from our member owners. We use the co-op's bylaws as an anchor and policy governance as our guide as we to promote our co-op's mission and values, also known as the ends. Our central focus of the board this year has been the expansion. We listened to questions and comments from owners at last annual meeting and at the online owner forums and tabling events and also other communications. The finance committee spent countless hours studying the financial aspects of the renovation and stress testing the pro forma that was developed by experts with our partner organizations. We devoted our board retreat to discussing different perspectives on expansion. There's been a lot of very complex information about renovation plans and costs to go through. It's including now weekly updates from Doug. It wasn't always easy, but by midsummer, we came to the conclusion that this is the right renovation plan and we are working with the right partner organizations, and now is the right time to do it. What is best for our co-op and our owners? A safer, more convenient space that has room for all kinds of local, organic, and lower cost products, right where we are in the heart of downtown Belfast. And also the return of our beloved cafe, which is a hub of our community. So I want to thank our board members for all the work that you've done this year as representatives of our owners. I want to thank Doug Johnson for your dedication, skills, and knowledge, and for championing the progress on expansion for 6 years on top of everything else you do to lead the co-op. And yeah, and I want to thank our workers for all you are doing day in and day out for all of us, and for embracing the renovation plan despite the inconveniences it's going to cause for a little while short term. And I want to thank the volunteer outreach team that that Valerie leads here, for your countless hours sharing renovation and loan program information with our member owners. The overwhelming support from our member owners has been incredibly inspiring. Most importantly, I want to thank all of our member owners for being part of a co-op. We wouldn't be the amazing co-op we are without you. Our greatest strength and health lies in the diversity amongst us, diversity of perspectives, backgrounds, and identities. We learn from each other, and through this, we discover and sustain even more so what we share. So, next up, we have Valerie Tate for the Capital Campaign Report.
Thanks, Susan. This may be putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but I'm assuming that everyone here knows a bit, at least, about the renovation, the work that's been done over the last 6 years to get here, and the financial apparatus that's supporting it. So I'm going to just report out some numbers, and then you'll hear more from our treasurer, from our general manager about, all the information behind it. So first of all, I definitely want to thank all of the investors so far. It has been amazing, as Susan said, to see the outpouring of support for this project. And what we hear all the time, what the outreach team hears, almost every conversation is, I love the co-op. I love the co-op. And people will say, some specifics around it. They love the workers, they love the friendliness, they love the organic produce, but always that overarching, I love the co-op. I do want to thank the outreach team, Killian Brayson, Annie Bussieri, Becky Nightingale-Johns, Kathy Martin, Alessandra Martinelli, and Emily Berry. They've been doing yeoman's work. It's not easy to pick up the phone that first time and, tell people about this amazing project and let them know what their opportunities might be to participate. But once we pick up the phone, it just generates a lot of energy and excitement, and we're happy to do it. So I think you know that the project is a $6.4 million project. There's a $4 million loan from the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast. We're going to be using $923,000 of cash on hand. The capital campaign is to raise $1.5 million by April 16th. So far, total in loans, we've received, we have pledges and money in the bank for, well, I'll say the total that we have in loans is $1,118,200. The total we've received in donations, which I'll talk about in a minute, is $21,400. So that means a total in progress of $1,243,600, or 82.9% of our ultimate goal. In the bank, we have $696,450. So we haven't really started yet saying to people, thank you so much for your pledge. Can we have the check, please? But we will be doing that soon. Obviously voluntarily people are coming in not only with their pledges, but with their checks. The median transaction is about $2,500. And so the number of transactions based on the median that we need to achieve in order to get to our goal is 103. We have left to raise $256,400, which doesn't sound like a lot compared to 1.5 million, but it's significant. We'll get there, and we're just blowing past every goal we've set for ourselves. And we hope that will continue, obviously. There's been incredible progress, but the daily participation rate and receipt rate has been falling, which one would expect at this point. The $100,000 match that you all may know about was an incredible, shocking, stunning success. We had two member owners, a couple who offered $100,000 match. So matching dollar for dollar, every dollar up to $100,000 for the month of February. We met the goal in 6 days. It was, we were all just shaking our heads, our jaws were hitting the floor. But that's the co-op, and that's what our community is. So we are actually looking for another generous investor to offer a match. And it would be fun to have a March match, maybe around, what's the day that has the green clover, whatever it is, St. Patrick's Day. Thank you. I'm 67. What can I say? So we do have a couple of consultants working with us, including a data guru who predicts that we'll reach our goal by March 19th, plus or minus a day or two. Now, previously you said we'd reach our goal by March, was it the 13th at 5 p.m. So, but with things slowing down a little bit, we're extending that out slightly. So, as Susan said, there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end, and I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you. John, next.
So next we have John Kruger for the treasurer's report.
Well, yes, I'm your board's treasurer. I'll try to make my presentation as brief, as I realize that reading numbers and trends can be tedious. But I think all recognize the importance that our co-op being on a strong financial footing right now with appropriate oversight, particularly now that we're right in the midst, in the beginning of a major expansion project. As treasurer, I represent the board finance committee, and I do want to shout out a big thanks to those that are on the finance committee. These are the people that really look at the numbers and on a regular basis. I want to thank Matt McConnell, who's a continuing past board member, and he's been on the finance committee for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I think now. Jim Miller, a past board member, and also a past board treasurer. And Ernie Cooper, right next to me here, the vice president, but he's also been a past board treasurer. We also have Colin Thompson, who's a board member, but he brings in a nice slant because he's a farm manager for Johnny Selected Seeds. And also Gina Ferrindo, who in the back there, who's a worker, who's actually working towards our MBA program. So it's a team of us that take our job, very seriously. We review financial indicators every month, and also taking quite a responsibility in reviewing all the details associated with this huge expansion project. We do have some formulas that we use, a pro forma, but it takes quite a lot of energy to go through all these numbers. We also partner with other cooperatives, such as other co-ops, lending organizations, grocer suppliers, and planners to assure that our financial tools and our goals really do represent people, planet, and prosperity for our community. We try to take all those into account. All right, so now for the numbers, you can see the slide there. We did have strong financials this year. A review of the profit loss sheet supports we're doing quite well, keeping on top of inflationary trends and inventory backlogs, and in trying to meet the living wage aspirations during a pandemic is no easy task. Sort of think about the idea that we're trying to keep a good margin when in fact we're looking at inflationary pressures. You buy commodities at a price A, you put it on the shelf with a price that you think will give us a margin that's appropriate. And no sooner do you put that out on the shelf, but the price just went up to buy it. So where's your profit? It's been very complicated. I have to put a hand out to Doug and the team for keeping on top of all these price changes. It's certainly been, it's very part of the complexity, the renovation project. We have things that we want to buy for our new store that may be 9 months before we can actually receive them. Some of the difference that you might see, in the 2 fiscal years that I'm showing there, a lot of that is the Paycheck Protection Program. That was probably the bigger significant reason for, seeing a variation. But if you look at a trend, we've been profitable for quite a few years. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is sort of a summary of a balance sheet. And again, we show strong equity. As Valerie just mentioned, we do have over $1 million right now sitting in cash, money that we've saved, for this expansion project. I think ratios that you see are important because it gives us an opportunity to compare how we're doing with how other businesses would be doing. The banks have looked at our numbers there quite thoroughly as we've gone forward. If you could go to the next slide. So here's, example of what we would consider to be good targets if you were to look at all these different indicators here. And it's good to see that with the exception of labor as a percentage of sales, we're really doing quite better, than what would be considered a good target. The labor as a percent of sales, actually, I was looking at the end of the year numbers and I saw a 24.9, but let's not haggle over 0.1% here. You know, and truthfully, you know, I think it is, we have a commitment to paying a living wage to our workers. And I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this, you know, as being a poor indication in any way. I think it's extraordinary that we've been able to keep up with the costs of you know, employing our workers at what we consider a living wage. It's not easy. If you go to the next slide, please. So in simple language, you know, the Patriot dividends are a return of our surplus income back to our income owners based on our net income generated by owner sales and proportional to individual owner purchases. Now, that's a long sentence, isn't it? But basically, you know, it says that, in other words, the more you spend as an owner, the more you get back as a dividend. The 66.7 is the percentage of our sales that actually were purchased by our owners. So that's a good indication too of our community support of our store. If you go to the next slide, actually my last slide. So there is going to be a patronage dividend this year, and you can see this is the amount, the $27,580. So basically, so how it works is a little complicated, but the IRS regulations for cooperatives agree that if you distribute at least 20% of your patronage dividend, that you won't be taxed on your profits. So obviously, you know, we want to really need to produce at least the 20%. It is something that the board votes on, the percentage. This year, we voted to keep 80% to use as equity. Feeling is really important right now as we're going forward with our renovation project. It's like a debt coverage ratio. You want to make sure that you've got enough equities that, you know, banks think it's still reasonable to lend you money. So that's the rest of the numbers that I wanted to share with you, and I'll certainly be available doing question and answers. Also, people that want to attend any of our meetings, you know, feel free to contact me. We'll try to make our financial meetings, you know, as transparent as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up, we have Doug Johnson, our general manager.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Thank you for your participation in the co-op, and thank you, directors, for all your service this past year, and everybody in the room who is also on committee, board committees, and I know that is a commitment, and I want you to know that it's seen and appreciated. All right, so 2022, how did we do? John covered some of this. But yeah, 11.3 million in sales. It's the highest highest in our co-op's history. Close to $200,000 in net income. Sales up 4.8% over the previous year. Labor as a percentage of sales, right on target where we need it to be. Yeah. This is the penny exercise. So I do this for workers, and I've been doing it at annual meetings, I think, every year since I've been the general manager, and it is a good way, I think, for people to make sense of the revenues that come into your co-op and also the expenses that go out of your co-op. So if you were to imagine that $11.3 million in revenues as 100 pennies, this is the breakdown of where all those pennies go to get to that 1.8% net margin at the end of the year. Right. So our biggest largest expense is cost of goods. So that is us just purchasing the things before we can turn around and sell them. So that's 63% of all of our revenues is just in purchasing things before we can sell them. The second largest chunk, 25 pennies, is our labor expenses. So that is wages and personnel costs. Let's see. Occupancy, that's water, sewer, electric, that's 2 pennies. Administration, that includes credit card fees, freight charges, store supplies, that's 4.4 pennies. IT is about a penny, that's our telephone and internet, software and professional services. Marketing and governance, so that's all of the board's work and everything that our marketing department spends in the year. That's about, together, that's a penny. Discounts are a penny. And that leaves us with 1.8 at the end of the year. This is our sales growth broken out by quarter since the end of 2016. You can see how erratic pandemic times have been. We were on a pretty good course and had some crazy growth in there, but also some losses as far as sales growth is concerned. The NCG, the National Co-op Grocer average for sales growth right now is around 2.4%. So that's 150 something odd co-ops across the country, 200 individual stores, and the average sales growth is around 2.4%, and we did 4.8% this past year. This is our cash. This is how much cash that we have in the bank. It's been slowly growing over the years. We got a nice bump during the pandemic. That was, PPP funds, but also we had 16% sales growth the first year of the pandemic. So equity, that's we have our as of the end of the fiscal year, we had the highest equity that we have ever had in our cooperative. That includes retained earnings, retained patronage dividends, member equity, and cash reserves. Our assets, as of the end of the fiscal year, were the highest they have been in our 46-year history. We had just under $3 million in assets. And our long-term liabilities, the things that we owe, they're at their lowest point since 1999, as of the end of the year. That big spike that you see was our PPP loan before it was forgiven. That's why there was a big spike there. All right. So this is a breakdown. That's our sales from 2018 to 2022. 4,850 active owners, 350 fully vested owners. Those are owners that have paid the entirety of their $200 equity share. We had 492 new owners during the fiscal year, and we gave out $31,553 in owner rewards. Our workers. So we had 59 full-time workers, 15 part-time workers. We gave out $2.8 million in wages and benefits to workers in the last year. 80% of workers are eligible for health insurance. Average tenure, 3.8 years for a co-op employee. And we had, as of the end of the year, we had 54% of workers at a livable wage. We use two different models to determine what a livable wage is. One is by the most conservative one is the MIT livable wage model. It took a huge spike during the pandemic as property values rose in our county. So it was actually up towards $18.16 was considered a livable wage. It just recently, within the last couple of months, has fallen back down. I think it's at $16.60 or something like that. But even at that elevated $18.16 an hour, we had 54% of workers at that. And the average wage for a worker at the co-op is $18.90. Right, common sense. We gave out we passed through $61,173 in common sense donations this past year. That program, I think actually I have a slide that shows this. Yeah, this is the growth of the common sense program. So back when we started that 10 years ago, it was under $10,000 in donations the first couple of years, and this past year is over $60,000. So that is a ridiculous number, and we should all be very proud of that program. And I think for a lot of these local nonprofits where they're working on shoestring budgets to begin with, when they get a $5,000 or $6,000 check, it makes all the difference. So this is a story that we have been watching pretty closely the last few years. There's a number of different conversations that we're having about food insecurity and about what the makeup of our community is and where people are. And one thing that was sort of an eye opener for us when we were tracking EBT purchases is the jump from from 2020 to 2022, more than doubling in EBT sales in that time period. Currently, 5.5% of Belfast Community Co-op shoppers pay with an EBT card, which that is up. I think a few years ago that was somewhere closer to the 2 or 3% range, and now it's up over 5.5%. So I think that there's definitely a story that is being told through those numbers and through the sales that are coming through the store. Which leads me to, so this is new news. So we are the first food co-op in the state of Maine that is going to be offering the WIC program. Yeah. It has been part of our business plan for the past 3 years to explore it and try to figure out how to make it work for our store. WIC, if people aren't aware, it's the special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children. There are approximately 18,000 Maine citizens that are currently participating in the WIC program. This was a huge labor for our workers and for the people that we've been working with. Our original intent for bringing on the program was to serve our local community, and it has expanded to provide a doorway for other co-ops and natural food stores in the state to offer the program. It will allow WIC participants they'll have a greater selection of local, natural, and organic products when they go into a store that is offering WIC. So, you know, and I want to recognize Heather Cuhay and Michael Walter, who is our store service manager, and Gina Ferrendo, or our store operations manager, and Gina Ferrendo, who is our store service manager, who put so much time and effort into making this a reality, our co-op. So thank you so much, guys. All right. And while we're on the subject of recognizing workers for their contributions, so this is the first time that we have had a big, this is the first time that we've had an in-person co-op meeting, and during the pandemic, we missed Jen's 20th anniversary at the co-op. So everybody knows Jen. Jen knows everybody. It's amazing. When we look through our customer comments, Jen is the #1 name that people mention on how happy they are with the co-op. So Jen will be 22 years in March. That's awesome. So so everybody, please thank you, Jen, for everything that you've done for the co-op. Can I advance? That's okay. All right, and before we start talking about the renovation project, I wanted to recognize our marketing staff. So Jamie Cermak, who's our wonderful marketing manager, Beth Dickinson, who is our graphics and promotions coordinator, Alessandra Martinelli, who is our outreach coordinator, and Emily Berry, who is our board admin, but also so much more and does so much work for our member services. And I want to recognize these folks because they put so much time and effort into making sure that our co-op looks wonderful and is presented the way that we want it to be and the way that it is. And if we have annual meeting or annual reports on the way out, you should pick one up because it's a beautiful document that they all put so much time and effort in, and we're really proud of it. And finally, prepared foods. Jane Anderson, who is our prepared foods manager, who put together all of the catering today. She and her staff are doing amazing things. And when we talk about the future of the co-op and talk about our prepared foods department and the cafe, really exciting things on the horizon. And I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. Okay. All right, so talking about the store renovation, this is our new store. So over on the table over there, there are blueprints, and you can see some of the design features. Our cafe coming back with this lovely cafe seating area. There's some internal renderings of what it may hopefully possibly look like. That's our outdoor seating area, or one of them. There's actually 2 outdoor seating areas in the plan. So what are we getting? What are we getting out of the renovation? We're getting 33% increase in retail square footage. So that's more room to sell more products, 100 linear feet in grocery, 100 linear feet in refrigerated grocery, nearly twice as much bulk. Yeah. This is our hydraulic lift. So if anybody here who has worked at the co-op or been around the co-op for a long time, the way that we receive products into the store is by using a forklift to carry things from a garage door on the bottom level to a garage door on the second level. So that is going away, and everything will be brought inside, and we'll be using a hydraulic lift to move things from the basement to the sales floor. Yeah. And the Shop for Me program, we'll be able to grow and expand the services of that department. That we launched that program out of necessity during the pandemic, and it has proven to be something that, I think right now is meeting the needs of the community in a way that we never have before. And I think it has potential to meet the needs of the community in a myriad of different ways in the future. All right, so these are the outcomes of the project. More space, more products, safer work conditions, more efficient operations, and Shop for Me having a space to grow. And that's it. That's all I got.
Next up, we have Ernie Cooper, who's going to talk elections.
So if you've been to many of these annual meetings, it always kicks off the election of board members. So we're gonna, the election starts. Can we go ahead and go to the next slide? The election begins today. This is the first day of the election. So and it continues through March 19th, assuming we get everybody to vote. You see the asterisk there. We have to get at least 10% of you to vote, or it doesn't count. So, but anyway, between now and March 19th, you'll have an opportunity to vote. It's an uncontested election. We have 7 candidates that are running for what could potentially be 9 seats. So, it's not like they're fighting it out. Everybody is potentially elected. But we still need you to vote. Even you can't say, well, everybody gets elected, so I don't need to vote. No, that's not true. Because one thing, the election's not valid unless at least 10% of the members votes. That's, I think, 479. I could be off on that, but around that number is the number of votes we have to even make it a valid election. And the length of terms is decided by who gets the most votes. You'd think, okay, let's give all 7 three-year terms. But if we do that, then that's going to screw up future elections. The bylaws call for us to elect approximately 1/3 of the board each election, and 7 would be far more than 1/3 of the board. So you'd have a big bump every 3 years. To avoid that, the board spaced it out. We're going to be electing 4 people to 3-year terms, 2 people to 2-year terms, 1 person to 1-year terms. And this is where your vote becomes important, because according to the bylaws, the longer terms go to those that get the most votes. So if they're all tied, that's in the bylaws too. We flip coins. And then the other reason for you to vote is in the bylaws. In order to be elected, a candidate has to receive at least 25% of the vote. So it has to get at least 25% of those 479 votes, or they're not elected. So hopefully all of them will, but that's another reason we need you to vote. So can we go to the next slide? Okay, how do you vote? Well, vote online. You'll get, every one of you and every member will get an email within the next day or so. Is that? Yeah, within. Okay, so later today, when you get home, you should have an email that talks about the election and contains a link that takes you to our online voting system. So easy as can be. But if you don't like to do it that way, we do have paper ballots. So just go into the service desk at the co-op and ask for a paper ballot, and they'll give you one. You can vote that way too. So no excuse not to vote. Okay. Now I want to introduce candidates here. I'm going to ask each one of the candidates. I'm just going to put their slide up and ask them to stand up and wave so you can see what they look like. Besides the picture, Stephen, is that Boaz? Thank you. He's from Belfast, self-employed, and I told him I wouldn't make him make speeches, but each of the candidates will be around after the program is over. So you can corner them, ask questions, or you can ask questions throughout the entire election. You can ask questions online by sending a question to the candidate at our board email address, board@belfast.coop. And that address is on, if you didn't write that down right away, that's on the website, the co-op website under the Board of Trustees page. So you can find it there. So if you want to ask Stephen a question, grab him after the meeting or send him an email at board@belfast.coop. Oh, yes. And each candidate made a candidate statement, which is probably more than we would get him to say today if I asked him to speak. And those are all on the website too. So you can find out a lot more about each of the candidates, about Stephen and each of the candidates by going to the website and looking at the statements. So thanks for standing so long, Stephen. Appreciate it. Okay, next, Corrine Burr. It's from Monroe. There's Corrine. Okay, and next is Babette Cohen Salal. I don't think Babette made it today. Is she here? Okay, but she is on Zoom. So, yeah. So, thank you for being on Zoom, Babette. Susan Cutting, you've already seen. Our board president is running for re-election to the board. She's just finishing her term and is running for re-election. She's from Belfast, is retired, and is the current board president. Next, Rio Greeley. Rio, it's right there. And he's from Belfast. He is program manager at the Game Loft. John Kruger, right next to me here, you already heard from. John's our current treasurer. He lives in Northport, and he's retired. But very busy, I can attest, he's very busy. Okay, next. Jim Miller, right there. Jim lives in Belfast. He's retired. Former board treasurer, as John pointed out earlier, former longtime board member. So glad to have him running. And that's all. So you can read the candidate statements, learn a lot more about them by going online and reading their statements at that address, or if you just go to, I'm sure there's a link that's easy to get to. You don't have to memorize that address. If you go to the board's webpage, you'll be able to get there easily. So we appreciate having so many really great candidates running to join us on the board. We have, as I said, 2 running for re-election, but we're going to have 5 new board members starting hopefully next month. If everybody votes, we can do it next month. So I look forward to having them join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. So we have 45 minutes for questions and comments, so lots of time to hear from everybody. And I want to remind everyone that on Zoom to send a message. So you go to the chat box and you'll find presenter on there. You can send your comments and questions into Heather Q, and we'll take turns between Zoom and the folks here. Oh, could you please first state your name?
Yeah, Karen Gleason, and I think that's it. Yeah, I notice on the second page, we've got 4,761 owners, and 363 of which are fully vested, which seems like a very low number. So in terms of outreach and in terms of getting our money a little higher, I assume that when we're talking to people as outreach, we're asking them if they can't afford anything else, at least they can afford to be fully vested. So that's sort of a question, but it's also, as a fully vested member, I want to encourage everybody to do that.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much. So yes, particularly when people say, oh gosh, I can't afford that $2,000 minimum loan. We're saying, one, thank you for your membership. Please keep shopping. There will be disruptions during the renovation. That will be wonderful. And if you're not fully vested yet, please fully vest. That's a great way to support the co-op. And we can find out for you how much equity you have, what else you have to owe. So yes.
Did you have something you wanted to add? Nope. Other questions? Zafra?
I guess a follow-on to that would be, do we know what the gap is between like the actual dollar amount and how much, if we, I mean, obviously with $200 for 4,761 owners, it's a potential of almost $1 million in equity. What is the dollar amount of the equity that we currently have?
It's a good question, Zafra, and I don't know off the top
Because
of my
that
head.
would be
Yeah,
the amount
yeah.
we could potentially raise if we got everybody to do it.
absolutely.
So the more important question I had is one that I've kind of talked about a couple of times. Anybody who doesn't know me, I was on the board for 10 years, so I may potentially talk a little terms of shop, but probably not with this one. The Roundup program, it's amazing. I mean, I remember when we started that program, and we were lucky if we raised $500 for each of the the organizations that we got, and that was extremely meaningful to them at the time. And now we're routinely giving thousands of dollars to single organizations. I would really like to see us break that up. I think I mean, obviously from the number of nominations that we have, there are a lot of worthy organizations in the area. So I would like to continue to encourage the board to consider doing either a 2-week cycle for Roundup recipients, or one thing that I saw at a number of other co-ops is every month you have a slate you can choose from. So you say, who do you want your Roundup to go in? And one day you might want to do this group, or next day you might want to do another group, or you want to do the same one all month long. But I think extending our reach would be really, really a great thing to do. So I hope that we can possibly do that. And I also hope, Hugh, that if we keep working on ECRS to make automatic Roundup a thing. Yeah. Yeah. I know we talked about that with ECRS from the beginning, and it hasn't been a thing, but it'd be nice. Okay.
Anyone want to respond to that? Do you have anything?
Just a quick note for everybody. Emily's taking notes in the back. So we're going to be tracking everything that's brought to our attention here, and questions that are answered and questions that we're not able to answer. And those that we're not able to answer, we will be getting back to you all, to the entire membership.
Thank you. Other questions? Yep. Mo is first, and I'll be back.
Hi, thank you. My name is Mo Lotman, Belfast resident. Thank you all for your work in making the co-op such a great place. This is more of a request than a question, but a lot of my friends and I have been concerned about the bulk section. We're really wanting to be able to buy without the packaging, the plastic. And I haven't lived here long enough to know what happened before the pandemic, but I was told a lot of that stuff got bagged because of the pandemic. And since then, of course, we've learned that that wasn't even how the disease was transmitted, and now things are normal-ish. And so I know I and a lot of people I know are really hoping that we can get bulk again, nuts and fruits and whatever that are all bagged. And so I'm wondering if you actually have a time frame on that. And I know you're going to redo the bulk section, and that's exciting, but that's probably a long time away before that's ready to go. And it's been a long time that's been in plastic. So that was my first question. And the second question was just if anyone's thought about doing a local, an area that could be more devoted to local products specifically.
Doug, do you?
Yeah.
wanna respond?
So the bulk section, I mean, it's a work in progress. We're definitely focusing our attention right now on when we renovate that section. And it is a ways off, but it's not that far off, right? So if we're staying on track, we're going to be breaking ground here in May. Hopefully we can keep that in a, fingers crossed, we'll have that a 9 or 10 month construction schedule. So we will be able to bring that section back in full force and in not that long of a time. The other question about having a local specific section, it's kind of odd. Like when we look around at other co-ops and, you know, see how they're merchandising things. I don't know that that is something that a lot of stores do. I don't know if that's necessarily, I don't know that that's best practice as far as grocery merchandising, but what we do, I think, is we try to highlight those local products within the sections, like within the certain categories. So if we were to try to bring everything that is a local product into a single section, it would be, you know, it'd be a pretty beefy section. But yeah, we try to give local products, as far as, you know, merchandising, we try to give them priority within each category that they're in.
Thank you. Who is?
There you go. Hi there, Phil Prince, former board member and worker. We've been wondering if there's a specific prioritized list of tasks relating to the renovation. And if there are some things on the bottom of the list that will do if you get the money, and just been curious about the scope.
Sure. Yeah. So we, meeting with the architect and our general contractor, like we are definitely at the point now where we're doing some value engineering. So we're looking at the things that if we had to chip them away, if there's things that we couldn't afford, what would they be, right? And the highest priority is about safety and infrastructure. So the things that we are doing, the commitments that we're making to new electrical, new plumbing, the vertical lift that we're putting in, all of those are definitely highest priority things. They're the things that if we don't do them, I don't think that building in this co-op is going to survive, right? And then when you get, you know, down the list, there are aesthetic things that we've already cut out of the program. There's, you know, there's probably more that we could cut if we needed to. I meet with our architects and our contractor and our national co-op partners weekly, and we're going through everything. And, you know, when we actually start getting closer and closer to construction, there may be more things that come off. But yeah, if you're talking prioritized list, Phil, I would say the safety pieces are top of the list.
Did you have a follow-up?
Try to remember.
You know where to find me, Phil.
Hi, I'm John Libby. I noticed that there's quite a difference between 2021 and 2022 in the net income. And I wondered if so you could explain that. And also, I wondered if there's any need for people to volunteer to help with the construction or whatever.
So I can speak to the difference in net income. So I would say the things that we were challenged with this past year were different than the things that challenged us in the previous year. Inflation was certainly something that we had to deal with. The price changes that we had to stay on weekly, monthly, weekly, and sometimes daily in order to make sure that we are maintaining our margins. Our store operations manager, Michael, and his sales team did an amazing job staying on top of all of that. That said, there was some margin creep there. Personnel costs. So we, on top of, you know, constantly trying to push wages in our store and making sure that people are getting cost of living increases and, you know, performance wages when we can, or performance increases when we can. All of the associated personnel costs of healthcare and dental care and, you know, workers' comp insurance, all of those things have gone up. Every year they go up a lot more than I think anybody would want them to, and a lot more than you would imagine they were. So trying to keep that balance of pulling in enough sales to offset all of those increases that happen and all the things that are out of our control. Sometimes, yeah, you end up losing some net income there. And the question about volunteering, yes. I don't know which part of the project, but certainly one of the discussions that we've had is around groundskeeping and landscaping. And, you know, when we get to the point where all the major construction is done and we just need to plant some trees and make the place look nice, I think there will be opportunities for owners to participate in that. I'm sure there'll be more, but that's one that jumps out to me right now.
Great, thanks. Heather, are there no questions so far? So folks on Zoom, please chime in with your questions and comments. We'd love to hear from you too. And you remembered your follow-up question here?
has the engineering study ever been accomplished on the cinder block wall?
Yes, yeah,
We're good.
we're good. Yeah.
Other folks, I've been on this end of anyone on this end of the room have comments or questions? Okay, great. Kara.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Kara. This is a weird question maybe, but I noticed that you've changed your dumpster policies and you've been much more critical, much more tight about people taking something out of the dumpster, and like food for goats, for example. Like my friends who run homesteads used to really love the co-op dumpster for goat feed. And I don't know if that's still happening or if you have special relationships with people, but I'm just curious, how do you deal with your dumpster?
I hope you're talking about composting back there. Not-
Compost.
Okay, geez.
Yeah, yeah,
Please
sorry.
do not go in the dumpsters.
The compost.
Yeah,
bins.
so our compost relationship, yeah, is an evolving thing over the year, and every year we kind of have to re-examine it. Right now, we're working with a couple firms who come in and like scrap dogs, and that may be the only one, but I can't remember right now. But the deal with the compost is it has to be consistent, right? So this is why sometimes we pay for services to come and do these things, because like if you know a couple weeks go by and some of the farmers don't come by to pick up the compost, then it becomes a health code problem. So we do have some relationships with farmers. We do have relationships with local organizations that come and take away the compost. It's not as much of a sort of a free-for-all as it probably was at one point, and a lot of that is because we ran into issues. It's in the winter, it's really difficult because if it's 6 degrees out and the compost is out there for an hour, then it's going to freeze solid and then no one's going to take it. So it's a lot bigger issue than I would like it to be. I wish that people would consistently come and take the produce we love. It's a good way to get rid of rotten produce, but yeah.
Heather has some questions from Zoom.
Yep, I have Glenn Montgomery says, I'm so thankful for the efforts of our board of directors and the co-op management and staff for keeping the co-op such a healthy and viable business. It's one of the cornerstones of downtown Belfast, and it's so important to me personally. I just have a minor issue to bring up. I would have preferred the annual meeting to be held downtown. If it had been, I would have attended in person. While today is not ideal biking weather, in general, I'm in favor of event locations that are easier to walk or bike to. When the annual meeting was held at the indoor farmers market, there was a good turnout, which is true. Can I speak to that real quickly? Okay, I just want to say the turnout is probably about the same, especially with the hybrid option. And as a technology person, this building is phenomenal for hybrid events. That being said, I think probably looking at a shuttle might be a cool thing for next time.
Good idea. Thank you.
If anybody else wants to talk to that.
No. Great. Other questions? Folks we haven't heard from? Sasha.
Hi, I'm Sasha. I just have a question about the field day products. I find that they end up taking up a lot of space, and I wonder if they're taking away space from other small farmers' products. And when the field day is more at eye level, and then like the black beans that are in an independent company are kind of far down, it makes it feel like our values are not about supporting small companies, but our value is about supporting this large field day company. And that's sort of what Hannaford has. I understand about the whole like making it more affordable, but are we competing with Hannaford, or are we trying to support small farms?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Hi, I'm Gail Wortel, and I am a proud owner of a small amount of stock in Unfi, United Food Distribution, and the field day is their brand. So it is coming through a co-op, and I believe they do utilize small farmers, and they also try to make really good working conditions for the people who work for UNFI. And, I don't see it as a bad thing. I really like to support them.
And not to get too deep in the weeds here, but talking about So Field Day, which is purchased through UNFI, it is one of their house brands. So back when, this is probably 10 or 12 years ago, National Co-op Grocers, which is, it's a cooperative of cooperatives across the country, food cooperatives. When they started seeing the changes in the market, started seeing more natural and organic products showing up in regular grocery stores, trying to find a way to stay competitive because they knew that that was going to be a game changer, which it absolutely was. They started looking at the idea of having a national co-op house brand. So like you go into Hannaford and Hannaford has all of their own brand items. They're usually the most affordable items. And they have their product name right on it. So National Co-op Grocers was looking at doing a house brand for all the co-ops across the country, started negotiations with UNFI, started negotiations with other distributors that were big enough that they could handle that for 200 different stores. And there are people that work in the purchasing department at NCG that put an amazing amount of time and energy and resources into doing the due diligence so that at the store level, so we don't have to do all that work. They're working so hard for us, and it is such an unseen piece of what we're able to do. That's it. Okay, so the negotiations with UNFI, with other distributors to see how can we do this house brand thing so we can have something that is good and affordable for everybody in every co-op across the country. When it came down to it, it was just easier and more cost effective for everybody if we were to stick with the Field Day brand. So that is a UNFI brand that is only available to food co-ops and independent natural food grocers across the country. And I will say, the slide earlier when we were talking about WIC, one of the first things that we were doing when we were having conversations with the state was we were able to get, how many? Quite a few. We were able to get 25 Field Day items added to the WIC approved products list. So that means that anybody, if you can find an independent natural food store or a co-op in the state that accepts WIC, you can go in and you can get a can of organic black beans and use your WIC for that. So I know that it's not everybody's favorite product, and I know that it's not a local organic product and there's a premium on that. But when it comes down to meeting people's needs and having something in the store that is affordable for people in our community, for all people in our community, I'm actually really proud of Field Day. I think it was a huge win for co-ops across the country, and I'm glad that we were able to have it.
Valerie?
I just wanted to make one quick comment. So I really appreciate, Sasha, the question, because you brought this up when we were at a tabling event together. And since you brought it up, I've been looking with different eyes at our shelves. And it's, given me some questions. I've had to learn some things about it. I still, have curiosity about certain things. So I think part of the benefit of being in a co-op and having owners with different perspectives is that we get to learn from each other. And I really did learn something from you when you brought that issue up. So thank you.
Any questions from Zoom? Other folks we haven't heard from yet. First, I'll remember Phil.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm the store operations manager, and eloquent answer, Doug. But you did forget one thing that I want to say to Sasha and every owner and every customer is that Field Day has not and will not replace any local or smaller company in our store. It's a supplemental product that we stock to have that kind of entry-level affordable brand. In the new store, when we have the 100 linear feet of grocery that you saw, what we're aiming to do is bring in even more local, even more smaller. So I just want to kind of assuage any concerns there. We're not going to be replacing anything that we know and love with Field Day. They can coexist. That's all.
Thank you, Jen.
Hi, you already know me. I also want to give a special shout out to Tom Clemenson. He is one of our finance people, and he's also been there this year for 23 years. So I wanted to give a special shout out to Tom and to John Spinney. So thank you, everybody.
Edward.
Ed Sheridan. No, I just had a quick question for Heather. I was just curious, since we're doing this thing, partly online, like how many people are zooming into the meeting?
We're at 21 participants online right now. And I think we've close to 30 or so here. So that's a pretty good turnout. And I do really like having hybrid option. I think it allows accessibility. It's something we, started doing during the pandemic, and it's never something I want to take away from people as an option.
Great. Other questions, comments? Phil?
It's kind of an operational question, so I'm not sure if it's appropriate, and it has to do with the dumpsters. Like that? I assume that the city is giving us some sort of grace period for leaving our dumpsters hanging out there exposed.
Yeah,
And- And I assume that that's on the priority list.
Yeah, I think there's a requirement from the city that we have it fenced in.
Yep.
So yeah, it's there will be fencing on the,
But in the meantime,
Uh-huh.
could we at least close the flap on it?
they should be closing the flap.
Yeah,
Phil,
so we
so
don't have
we're-
to, it is a little.
It's windy. I don't
it-
know.
It is windy, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Heather Q, anyone else from Zoom? No, okay. Karen?
Karen Gleason, I know I asked a question before, but I wanted to raise the issue. Having been in the co-op many years and been on a few committees, the whole concept that an awful lot of people in our community think that the co-op is too expensive, and how important it therefore is for us to make sure that we have a lot of affordable food in our shelves. Because I know I was on a committee, I think it was the outreach or global something or other committee. I can't even remember the name of it anymore. And we tried to ask people on the out in the community, and an awful lot of people said they had never been inside our store because it was just too effete. It was too expensive. Hannaford was too expensive. And so I think that we all need to remember that we're in a, health food bubble in the co-op. And I certainly appreciate being in that bubble, but I know that a lot of my neighbors, a few of them even said that the only reason they came into the co-op was that their doctor gave them a prescription for vitamins, and they could get vitamins and, and healthy stuff like that out of the co-op, cheaper than they could, elsewhere. But I just want us to keep that in the backs of our minds as we think about where our food is coming from and what it really effectively costs.
I 100% agree with you, Karen, and that is, I will say that, I can speak for operations. That has been something that we have been living and breathing and feeling. I'll say, since I became the general manager, and, when we, the conversations that we have, at the board level, right? So like part of our global ends is that we're going to have affordable food and water, right? So and every time, every year I have to report on that, and I have to, talk about what affordability actually means and how it's subjective, but I think that we kind of all know what we're talking about, especially when people come to you and say that the co-op is not affordable. So I will say that we are laser focused on changing that narrative. Part of our rebrand this past year, or brand refresh this past year, bringing community, making it Belfast Community Co-op, and talking, the tagline on the bottom is, owned by you, food for all. And we're living that, and we are committed to living that and making that, changing that perception in the community that that's what the co-op is, because it's not. Maybe at one point, I think that, when we were founded in '76, like the world was a different place. The needs of this community were a different place, and they've evolved consistently throughout the 46 years that the co-op has been around. And realizing what the needs of the current community are, that's all of our work. That's the board's work. That's your work. That's operationally, that's our work. So I hope that everybody, I certainly hear you, and I hope everybody else in the room hears you.
And also, can I just add just one other thought is we do have the owner engagement committee. And if owners are interested in getting involved with ideas of how we can draw in more people or try to help change that perception of the co-op, we would love to have people join the committee too.
When I was 5 years old and we were doing breakdowns in the Grange Hall in South Montville, we were poor AF, as they say, right? And that was the only way we could get natural products, was for one of us, I think usually Jack Fahey, or Phil, do you remember who was doing the runs down to, Phil was doing runs down to Boston. So my parents and my best friend's parents and were doing the runs down to Boston and coming back and doing the breakdowns. And I remember 5-pound blocks of cream cheese and buckets of peanut butter. And it was just, yeah. So anyway, so and that's the thing is like, in the beginning, the co-op was for people who affordable way to get food. And it has, the world has changed. It's not so hard to get those products anymore. And it's a lot easier for multinational corporations to package them and put them on the shelves at Hannaford and everything. So it's a different world. I did want to ask if we are at a point now where we know what the phasing is going to be with the construction and what's going to come first. So yeah.
We are close. So we do have a calendar, we have a phasing plan. Not to paint too broad of a stroke. So the first thing that's going to get done is the basement. So we'll be moving all of our offices, everybody that's working out of the basement out, putting in whole new meat processing and production space down there, walk-in coolers, some office space, some employee or worker break areas and worker restrooms. So that's phase one. Phase two gets a little bit grayer. I think that's when the build outs for cafe seating, for the curbside program, and the vertical lift, where that is going to happen, plus some of the back office restructuring, and then and probably prepared foods at that time, which we're going to have to relocate them. And then the final phasing, of course, is going to be the difficult one, where that's the grocery shelves and the front of house and all of that. So yeah, the big, those are sort of, it's 3 stages right now: basement, some upstairs, and then sales floor. And a lot of that is hinging around, I forget who said it earlier, maybe it was John, talking about the delays on production for refrigeration and electrical and all of that. It's shocking. Like, I mean, I've been around co-ops for 21 years and I've never seen production delays on equipment, and I've never seen anything like that. We used to be able to, like the steel shelving that, we use to merchandise groceries, you used to be able to place an order on the 1st of the month, and maybe by the end of the next month you would have it, and it's on a 11-month delay right now on production. So everything is just taking a lot longer than we want it to.
Another question from me. I'm Kara. So we all know, if we hang out in Belfast, that one of our biggest cafes has closed, Chase's Daily, and we are probably all feeling the tightness of a place to just go hang out and sit. That's not your living room or the library. So is it possible that the cafe reopens before the renovation or not?
I don't think so. Right now, our Shop for Me program is operating out of that space, and I don't want to take that away without having somewhere else to house them. So right now we are just banking on that new cafe space. I really wish, I'm definitely, feeling the pain from Chase's going away, and I really wish that we had moved. If we had done this a year or 2 or 3 years ago, we would be in such better shape right now. But yeah.
Anyone who hasn't spoken up yet, and have any questions or thoughts? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Steven and I'm running for the board. And I just want to say thanks for everyone for putting this on. It looks like it was a lot of work. And yeah, just one question I had was, what was the average income per hour in the past years? It's really cool that the board is now trying to pay people more than it was before, or not the board, the co-op.
God, what was the average? Off the top of my head, Stephen, I can't remember, but I will get you that. We have consistently tried to raise the bottom of our, like right now, our workers come in at $15 an hour, but then within, once they get out of their trial period, they get bumped up to 1550. It was a long trek. Like when I started the co-op, I think $9 an hour maybe was considered good. I was brought in at $9 an hour, and I had management experience from another co-op. So it has been, it's every year we are looking at where we stand as far as livable wage is considered. We're looking at what the cost of living increases has been, which if anybody has been paying attention to that, it's been pretty crazy the last couple of years. Usually it's around 2%, but I think it was at 8% last year and 6% the year before that. So yeah, I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do over the last few years as far as getting closer to having 100% of staff at a livable wage. It's constantly changing, and we're going to keep pushing for it. But yeah, I'll figure out what the average was before.
Any questions from Zoom yet? No.
Not really a question. Hi, I'm Rio. I'm also running for board. More just kind of something that I'm interested in seeing in the future. And I know obviously that most of the attention is to the renovation. But what is your guys' thoughts on like future collaborations with other community organizations in the future, or like community skill training opportunities, for example, like a cooking class or like nutritional teachings, or like trying to get kids who might be eating a lot of junk food in and be like, hey, here's some alternatives that you might eat that are still really tasty, but not so bad for you, or similar such ideals.
Rio, such a great question, and I'm so glad you're going to be on the board because, we have been so immersed in renovation and capital campaign for years now, and trying to make decisions about that, and finally getting that moving. It's very exciting. And now that, for those of us on the outreach team making phone calls and talking to people, we're realizing that this capital campaign has become a community building campaign. And we're learning about each other, and we're finding out what people are interested in. And we're having most amazing conversations about things that are totally off the topic of capital campaign, which is great. It's so refreshing because it's reminding us, oh yeah, there's more to be done. And I think every idea that you just mentioned is fantastic. And I can't wait for us to be talking about that and doing something about it.
Other questions or comments from people who haven't spoken yet? Or any other follow-up questions from other folks? Not on Zoom. Oh, Zafran's got one more.
I'm not asking every question I have. I'll talk to Doug and the board about some. So I understand the concept of tracking the average wage, but as a stats nerd, it's a lot less meaningful to me than the median wage and the quartiles, because with an average wage, you could have 5 people making $500 an hour and 50 people making $1 an hour. So so I would like to track the median wage instead of the average, or both. And the other is whether there is a high to low ratio cap, and whether that's something that the board has talked about implementing, so that the lowest paid employee and the highest paid employee are within a certain ratio of, say, 5-to-1 or 3-to-1 or whatever.
Sure. There's nothing in place. There's no cap in there, but I will say ours is 3-to-1. So, it's less than 3-to-1, huh? Yeah, I mean, considering, CEOs and other companies make 100-to-1. So, thank you, Zafra. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, like, the reality is we are a successful co-op. We're an $11.3 million co-op in with 4,800 owners in a town of 7,000 people. And we're also, we're never going to be a huge multi-million dollar company where you can afford to have crazy CEO salaries, and I'm aware of that. But yeah, I mean, anytime we talk about worker wages, our push has always been to try to bring the floor up. We do graduated, usually when we do increases, we do graduated increases throughout the wage chart. So, people in entry level are getting a good bump, and then it kind of smaller bumps percentage wise as it goes throughout the organization, to try to fight, some of that wage compression stuff. But yeah, I agree with you on the median. That would be, I've definitely run both of them, and they're not that far off. But yeah, the next time reporting comes around, I'll include median. But thank you.
Great. Heather Q.
We've got from Paul Sheridan. In seeking funds for donations specifically, was there more to hear about that? And also perhaps we can focus a good amount of those funds towards nutritional education.
Paul, thank you so much for that question. I'm so glad, because I said in my earlier comments and when I first presented that I would talk about donations at some point. So you gave me the opportunity. So we've been very focused on the loan program, and that's what our consultants have advised us to reach our goal via loans. And then at a certain point, be more public about the donation option. Only member owners can invest with loans. Anyone can make a tax deductible donation. We have a fiscal agent, the Cooperative Development Institute, which will accept donations and then return them to us as grants, right? And so, as I mentioned, we already have about $20,000 in donations. That is because people have said to us, literally, I'm quoting, and it's been more than a few, I'm too old to make a loan. I'm not going to be here in 12 years. And we know that, the promissory notes can be with someone's estate and people can inherit them. But in any case, they want to make a donation instead. And there have been some substantial ones. So we have a GoFundMe site that can accept up to $500. And that money goes to the Cooperative Development Institute and comes back to us as a grant. Or for $500 or more, you can send a check directly to the Cooperative Development Institute. And so our consultants have advised us, don't publicize this until after you have, remember our goal is 1.5 million, until you have 1.2 million in the bank. So we have kind of done some things that our consultants have advised us against, and we've been successful. So including that $100,000 match. So it's not like we're going to automatically follow their advice every single time. So you may see the donation option becoming more visible sooner rather than later. But I hope that answers Paul's question. Paul, I think you also said something about, could those donations go towards like a skills building workshop in health or nutrition or something? And I think there are some ideas people have come up with about, there's a certain amount that we're going to be able to do on parking. If we wanted to do something even better on parking, could we collect more donations for that? And I'll just wrap up by reminding you, which you all may know, we have a hard stop on $1.5 million in loans, and we have a hard stop on April 16th. But donations we can continue to take, and we can take as much as people want to give for a much longer period of time.
Thank you. One last question here.
Corrine, I'm also running for the board. I'm just wondering, have you provided like a cost breakdown for the renovation? You have provided that?
Yeah, so at we had an event on January 13th, and we did a breakdown of all the, the breakdown of all the construction costs, the breakdown of the equipment costs. We did all that. It's kind of, it's a little bit of a moving target, right? Because like as things become more concrete and more solidified, we have a contract now with our general contractor where things are locked in as far as a max, but the prices within those are, there are still some placeholders in there, so we can't 100% say exactly what things are going to cost. Plus, when construction starts, I'm sure there's going to be changes. Sure. Equipment costs, we're still waiting on some final numbers. We have preliminary numbers on that. And we did share those publicly at the renovation meeting that we had on the 13th. John?
That's a good question. And obviously there's going to be changes and as we move forward. The Finance Committee has also requested something similar, like we're looking at maybe a monthly report where we get updates and any of the costs. We've got it's like a spreadsheet. Here's all the construction costs, and this is what we started with. Now, if there've been any changes, we're looking to see up and down, and if there is a change in any increases, we're looking to understand that with the understanding that maybe there'll be some, as Doug mentioned, some engineering, value engineering. So yeah, we're trying to keep a pretty tight understanding of it, because we also realize that if a major cost comes in, we can't just go and borrow more money. we're looking at, we sort of have limits in terms, looking at this pro forma, of how far we can really go, even with all the loans that are out there, because our plan is to pay them all back, obviously. So anyways, Doug's been working with the finance committee to come up with sort of like a monthly report of what we call key indicators for the renovation project. Like Jim Miller over here, he's been involved in some fairly substantial projects in the past. And we're working with him also to see what from his experience might be the best indicators that we can get on a monthly basis.
I also want to add, as an incoming board member, we'll get you more numbers than you want to look at. But also, I think anybody that happened to miss the meeting on the 13th, that presentation is recorded and available on the website. So anybody that wants to go back and fast forward through that, it is available.
Great. Well, we are a little past our time. If there are any there's one last burning question out there, we could take it. But I think we're gonna wrap it up now. And I want to thank you all for coming here in the Hutchinson Center, and thank you all Zoom folks for Zooming in. It's great to see everybody. And reminder that if any other questions come up on your way home, or you can always email board@belfast.coop. We love to hear from our owners, and encouraging folks to join a committee. We've got 3 committees: board development, owner education committee, OEC, and the finance committee. So do contact us if you're interested in getting involved in a committee. Remember to vote when you get back, or soon. You don't have to when you get back home. And I guess that's all. Thank you very much.